curried beef and rice bowls with some blueberry crisp and a little bit of naan because the naan yesterday was so good. I kind of wanted it again today to dip into my little curry. So let's start by getting our rice ready for our dish. We're going to use 2 cups of rice. So let me measure that out. What is this? Is this a half a cup? It is. So I'm going to do 4 of these. We'll rinse it and then we'll get it cooking up. 3 and 4. Okay, let me grab our rice right over here. We're going to rinse it just to get it going. Get a little bit of that creaminess, that powderiness off of it so that we'll have nice little individual granules cooking up for it. This makes it so much better. Prevents you from getting, wasn't me, prevents you from getting mushy rice. Okay, I'm going to get this in here. And then we're going to let it come to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, we'll turn the heat down to low and then put our lid on. I'm going to give it a good stir so that it has a chance to mix around. And just some simple jasmine rice for this. Okay, let's whip up our naan dough so that we can make our little naan dippers here in a little bit. So pretty much, if you wanted to make naan yesterday and you want to still make it, you can retouch the recipe. You know, yesterday we did naan with a little like kind of a Greek dish, and now I really wanted an Indian dish, and I love, that's my favorite thing is to dip naan in like either saag or curry, and so I'm going to do something delicious so I can have that. Okay, we're going to getting my new giant tub of yogurt here for it. So let's get everything. Do I have my measuring cup out? Not yet. I'll grab my little spatula. We're going to start off with a cup of sourdough discard. So this is a great recipe to use a good amount of discard if you have it. It can be active or you can have, ready to actually feed it. So we're going to use a whole cup. Here. So I'll add this into our pan here, our bowl. And then cover Jacques right back up. Bring them back over here. And then we're going to add in, let me grab a spoon, a half a cup of yogurt. And again, I'm just going to eyeball this. That should be around a half a cup. I'm going to use a little bit of yogurt in our curry dish. So I'm not done with it, but I'll put it right over here for when we're ready for it. This will add a little creaminess to our curry dish that will bring down that lovely kind of flavor. We're going to do 6 tablespoons of water, which is the same as 90 milliliters. And then I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of olive oil, which I forget to sit out. So let me grab my olive oil real quick. So many things. I've been busy kind of getting ready because this weekend we have a soccer tournament kind of away, but I decided to turn it into like a mini camping trip. Although we're going to stay in a cabin instead of a true like tent camping, just because there's supposed to be a little bit of rain and it's just for a short trip. And so I'm just kind of getting ready, packing up everything, figuring out what I need to do. And the best part is I haven't even told any of the kids yet. So all they know is that we have to leave to go to a soccer tournament, but they have no idea that we're actually like camping out and staying over. So I'm going to like pack their bags for them and they won't know until we're actually there tomorrow. But I'm pretty excited. We're going to go do some fun little adventures, go to Dinosaur World, because it's our kids' spring break and so for next week. So I'm kind of excited on there. for it. And I will say, I really like to surprise our kids, although at one time it backfired on us. But because if I tell them about things too early, Evie's really terrible. She's not a patient person. And she like gets so like over the top excited for our little adventures that she is like almost like unbearable to be around because she's like, what are we going? I need to pack this, this, and this. And she gets like so crazy and gung ho about it. So I like to keep it a secret until we're ready to go there. Okay, we're gonna add in half a tablespoon of salt, so 1.5 teaspoons, which is the same as a half a tablespoon.
Rondi, essentially.
Well, thank you, Rondi. We appreciate that. Well, thank you, Shannon. We appreciate that as well. And then I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder and then a half a teaspoon of baking soda. So 1, 2, and then we'll do a half a teaspoon of baking soda. We're going to mix this up and then it will be time to add in our flour, and that is pretty much all you need for your naan dough. So really simple. Once I start mixing this baking powder and baking soda in, it's going to make the base to our naan nice and fluffy. You see, it's going to start to grow in size. And that's what makes these just so good and delicious. There. Okay. Let's get ready to add in our flour. We need 3 cups of flour, and then we'll give this a good knead to it. And then we can start on our blueberry crisp, at least getting the blueberries going, and then get our kind of our base for it, our curried beef bowls. We need 3 cups of flour, so 2, and just all purpose, although you can use bread flour in it. So if you have like a ton of bread flour, this works well with that as well. Okay, let's give this a nice knead or mix together, and then we'll knead it up. The dough should have a slight little bit of tack to it, but not super sticky. And the main thing is you want to let it sit and hydrate. You want that flour to be able to soak up the water and get its elasticity before you start rolling it out to make your little, pieces of naan. Okay. Got the form basically going, but I'm going to give my rice here a little bit of a stir. Now I'm not going to put the lid on it yet. I want it to come to my rice to a good rolling boil. I feel like sometimes if you put the lid on too prematurely, then your rice isn't going to cook as nicely. Okay, let's get all of this down. I'll flip it out, give it a good knead, and we'll let it sit and hydrate. If you happen to get, if it's a little too sticky, you can always add a little bit more flour to get it to the right, to where you can work with it. Sometimes depending on if you're using a sourdough discard that's more liquidy than your other one, you might need to use a little bit more flour. I'm going to add a little bit more because it is a little sticky. And that's why I said you just never know. Sometimes you just need a little bit more, just a little sprinkle. And that should be good. Just enough so that when you're working with it, you're going to have a tackiness to it, but you don't want it to completely stick to your hands. You also don't want to add so much that you have a stiff dough because you want it to be nice and soft when you roll out later, so it pops up nicely as well and is not dense. Just getting all of the little flour crumbs. Give it a good little couple kneads here. We'll knead it again before we roll it out, but this one, we just want to kind of work it. Okay.
You have a question? Is that sourdough?
This is, yeah, a sourdough naan. So not the bread, but we have sourdough discard in it to make our naan, which is going to be our flatbread that we're going to have with our dish. So, and I'm making a kind of a curry dish because my parents love it, and I wanted to make a good meal before we went out of town so that they don't go hungry over the weekend. I give this rice a good stir, and then we're going to turn this down nice and low and let it simmer on low. Put the lid on. And now that we've got our dough right here, I'm going to just sit it right there. I'm going to cover it with a little bit of plastic wrap after I wash my hands. And then we will just let it hydrate for a minimum of 10 minutes. So it's kind of I always make it the first thing. That way, by the time I'm ready to cook it out on my skillet, it will be nice and hydrated. And this helps just retain the moisture, and so it doesn't dry out. And you just need to go over the top. You don't have to completely wrap it, but we've got it right there. Now let's get our blueberries going for our blueberry crisp. I had a bunch of blueberries, and I want to make sure, I use them up before we're gone so they don't go bad. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of butter. I'll let that start to melt. And we're going to do just a slight pre-cook on our blueberries. Let the juices come out, and then we will turn it to my smaller burner there. I have about, I want to say around 2 pounds of blueberries here, so a good amount of blueberries, enough to kind of cover the base of our things. Now these will start let out juices and everything like that, but fresh blueberries work really well for it. Normally I would use a lime or a lemon, but I'm fresh out of lemons. I have probably 100 limes, and they're similar in flavor and it will work well. But we're going to squeeze in the juice from half a lime. Main differences between the lime and the lemon is lime is a little bit more tart than lemon, so it won't matter too much on this because we're going to be adding a good amount of sugar for sweetening up the blueberry base of our things. So just juice from half a lime. And then we're going to add in our sugar. Since we have we've got about a pound of blueberries, which is like the same as 2 kind of cartons here. I'm going to add in about a half a cup of sugar. You don't want it to be super sweet because we are going to have this lovely kind of crumb topping on top. And I find if you have that base too sweet, then it's just sweet on sweet. I like it to be the fruit to be a little less strong, more mildly in sweetness for it. It's not like a blueberry pie where you really need it to carry the pie crust as far as the sweetness factor. With this, you have that lovely crumb topping on top that adds a little bit. And then we're going to add in about a teaspoon of vanilla extract, which is around a capful or so.
Yeah, question. How was the salmon last night?
Oh, it was really, really good. I was, interested to try the butcher box salmon because we hadn't tried it. And it was actually really good quality on there. And it was delicious. Torrin liked it, and he was happy. The cameraman even said it was his second my favorite salmon that I cooked, which is saying much because he doesn't like salmon at all. So that means he really liked it. And if that's what I said, we should really like it and we should have it up more often. And I agreed with his sentiment there. More salmon more often. I love salmon. So good. I don't know why he doesn't like salmon as much. Okay, we're gonna let this simmer and cook over our medium. I've got it on like a 6 over here on my small burner. Once that juices start to come out and they start to sweat, I will add in some cornstarch to make a nice little thickener for it. And then we'll make let's make our crumb topping right now before my butter thickens back up. Okay, we're gonna start with a half a cup of melted butter. So this is gonna be that crisp topping that you make on top of our blueberry things here. So So I'm just going to make it up because we have our butter already melted. And we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. And this is where, that's why I said you're getting more sugar in this part, so you don't want to have too much in the base one. Let me grab my measuring cup here. I restocked it. I always think it's funny when I buy brown sugar, and this is all like light brown sugar, but various brands have different colorings to their brown sugar. Like some have more of the molasses in there. And so it's always interesting when I put it in there. It looks like I've, got a nice like geological dig going on here. We're going to do a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Make sure it's kind of firmly packed. And a 1/2 cup of oats. You can use old-fashioned or quick oats. Just don't use steel cut oats because that will be too crunchy. So mix those up. Slide that guy over here. And you know what? I can just use this spoon that the blueberries are with. We're going to coat these all the way up, and then I'm going to add in a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And that's going to give, when it bakes up, that baking powder is going to give it a little bit, it's going to make it less dense and a little bit of a puff, which I find is really, really lovely. So a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, which cuts down on that sweetness factor, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. That is baking soda. Baking powder. I would give it a lot of a puff. Okay. Let's mix this in.
You have a question. Why do you use dark crumb toppings for the crisp with the light one for muffins?
It actually depends what muffin that I'm making. I might use a dark crumb topping for. I find for crisp, I really, really love that brown sugar streusel topping over like a lighter one. I think it's just a nice richer one. But with a blueberry muffin or a lemon muffin, ones that have lighter flavors, you want that lighter sugar. You want that granulated sugar flavor instead of that rich kind of flavor from the brown sugar. So that's kind of why I do like my pumpkin muffins, applesauce muffins. Those I use a darker streusel for because that flavor palette goes well together. We're going to add in 3/4 of a cup of flour here, plus around like, a tablespoon or 2 more. I'm really looking for my texture on it here. So, and I will say, you go in there, it's around up to 2 tablespoons. So it's not quite enough to get you to a full cup, but you need a little bit more. Then let me give my blueberries here a quick stir. I was starting to see them pop and make their delicious oozing. Gorgeous. I'll turn it down just a little bit. I want them to pop up enough to bring out some of their juices so I can add the cornstarch to thicken it up for it. Okay. Let's add in got our flour in here, and then I'm going to mix it until I've got my crumb kind of forming. And I kind of go my crumb base more so much on like a texture for it versus, the exact measurement. So I think I put 1 tablespoon in. I need to put another tablespoon more.
Judy sent you a gift.
Oh, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. Here we go. And this is what's going to go over the top of our blueberry base that we're making. Sprinkle. There we go. So I kind of want it to have a texture where it kind of falls apart but still holds big crumbs. So not as dry as some streusels that I put on muffins, because this is going to kind of bake together. So it needs to be a little bit richer and a little bit denser. Okay, we've got that sitting there and ready while we wait for our blueberries over here to finish up their little simmer. Blueberries don't need to cook as long as apples do, so they should be done fairly soon. But I love to make sure I have a good base going so that we can add that cornstarch so that we get a really good kind of gel base going in there so it's not too liquidy when it's finished. Beautiful. Let that simmer for just another minute or so, and then we'll pop it in the oven to bake up. Let's get our butcher box, our meat here seasoned up or get ready for it. This is a chuck roast from our butcher box, so I'm going to cube it up into nice kind of big chunks, and then we will season it, sear it off, and then we'll make our kind of our curry base to put it back in there. So let me grab my thing out here. We'll give this a nice open it up. So it's kind of perfect. This is the last cut that I have in my freezer, and our new box comes tomorrow, which I kind of feel bad because, my mom's going to be like watching our dogs and taking, care of everything. And it comes tomorrow and it's like 63 pounds. And I was like, oh, I know she's not going to be able to carry that into the house. So she's going to have to open it up and like carry each piece in and put it in our freezer while we're gone. So I was like, yeah.
You have a question? Could you make this dessert with blackberries?
Yes, you blackberries, apples, peaches, nectarines. I make it with all sorts of different fruits, but I vary the spices differently. So with apples and pears, I typically add cinnamon in. Uh, Nectarines, peaches, I'll add a little bit of nutmeg in as well as the cinnamon to kind of bring up those richer flavors to it. Blueberries, no cinnamon to keep it that kind of fresh. On there. I feel like blueberries and cinnamon doesn't go well together. But yes, this is one of my favorite, I will say, most requested dessert from a lot of my friends. If I like will make them a meal or something like that, they're always like, can you make crisp? And it's always, can you make apple crisp? Because they always love apple crisp. And I'm always like, that's the hardest of the crisp to make because you got to peel a lot of apples there. Okay, we're going to add in our cornstarch to our base here. I'm going to keep that heat on. You're going to add in about a tablespoon or so, enough to make it to thicken it up. We'll do a little bit at a time, just sprinkle it over the top and stir it in. And then we'll just kind of keep adding until we've got a nice kind of gel base. I'm really hoping that I have enough because I'm down onto my bottom part, but any is better than none. There we go. I'll put in the rest of that. And so in the beginning, I added in a tablespoon of butter. That butter is going to work with the cornstarch and help give it a nice kind of creamier texture, gets rid of that chalky flavor. I find that you just need a little bit of that fat to get rid of the chalky flavor of cornstarch. Down the wire. I need to remember to put that on my restock list, but we should have just enough for it. And then we're going to let this just heat up just a little bit until that is activated. And then we'll put our crumb topping over the top. Here we go. But certain fruits, I will say, depending on what you use, will either use more or less cornstarch, depending on how much liquid is in there. So apples have a little less liquid than, blueberries or, but peaches have a bit more. So you might need a little bit more in there. And then just heat it over until, you start to feel that resistance and it starts to thicken up. So you've made your slurry here, and then the heat is going to activate it. And you should have a nice kind of gel form. Now, if you don't love that jelly texture that cornstarch does, you can also just scoop the fruit out with like a strainer type thing where you don't get all of the sauce, and that way it won't be as liquidy when you bake it up. It works better with like apples than it does with blueberries, but some people really don't like the jelly texture of cornstarch that it gives you, but I feel like it's kind of perfect for this. So here, as you can see, we've got this nice perfect thickness. So as you move through it, it like holds together. So you see, versus just being too runny. Beautiful. I'm going to just scoop around on here. Push all of that blueberry base down there. And then we're going to put our crumb topping over the top of this. And then this is going to go in the oven to bake at about 350 for 25 to 30 minutes, depending on, you'll check out the crust for it. This works really, I like to cook it in my Dutch oven because then I can go from the stove into the oven, no problem. But it works well also in like an 8x8 baking dish or a loaf pan. We're going to sprinkle it over the top. So just kind of evenly sprinkle it and then fill in where you have any of the gaps for it. Here. And then we'll get it all on there. And as that bakes, that blueberry juice will kind of bake up into the bottom half of it, and it's just going to be absolutely delicious. Okay, let's go get this in the oven to bake up. And the nice thing is with this, you're truly just baking the crumb topping. And this part doesn't go as long because blueberries cook a lot faster. But with the apples, those are the ones that you're actually going to need a longer cook time on the stove to get them tender. I'm going to set my timer for 25 minutes because the baking time is really for getting that crumb topping and setting the base, but you don't want to have apples that are firm. So you want to cook them until they're soft on the stove if you switch to a different fruit. I know I thought about doing apples today too because I had about 5, but they were smaller apples. And for a good size crisp, you really need like 6 to 7, just because apples, by the time you actually like peel them and get them there, they shrink. We're going to cut our chuck roast here up into some bite-sized cubes. That way we can saute off. If you see any big strips of fat, just kind of cut it out because that's going to be very rubbery when you cook it off for this. It's not, chuck roast, if you're going to cook it in the oven, that fat is wonderful because it will render down and keep your meat nice and tender. But if you're going to do it in a stew or a soup, you want to trim it off because those pieces will be really chewy. And I will say the nice thing about the butcher blocks cuts of chuck roast is they're fairly, I will say you've got, you get pretty good pieces of meat with very defined edges of fat. So it's not too difficult to trim. Sometimes you'll get, a chuck roast with so much fat in it.
Are you streaming tonight?
We will not be doing a dinner time stream, but if everything goes as planned, we will do a late night stream tonight because I've got a bunch of stuff to cook up and prep for our camping trip type thing. I will say our cabin trip because it's not quite camping, but we'll be doing campfire cooking. But I've got just little treats and everything that we're making, like our Rice Krispie treats and Chex Mix, my like camping staples that we'll have for us while we're gone. And I think I'm going to make some homemade graham crackers so we can roast some s'mores while we're out camping as well. So we will do that later tonight. We have soccer, so I'm not going to be getting home until, after 9 o'clock. So we'll probably grab food and kind of eat whenever we can. It's always, sports always keeps you on our toes. That's tomorrow. We'll have such an early, thing because we have about a 2.5 hour drive, but then we switch time zones and not in the direction that we want. We're going to lose an hour. So we have to get up extra early because the girl or for Lena or Evie's first game is at like 10 something. So it'll be an early drive. And then I realized that Sunday is daylight savings. And so not only will we be on Eastern time, so different time zone, but then we'll be at losing another hour. So I'm like, oh, that's like -2 hours. I was like, and we have an early game Saturday or Sunday, not super early, like a 9 something game, 9:50. So I guess it isn't too bad. But luckily our campsite is only like 5 minutes away from the field, so that's really nice too. But it'll be nice because, the one thing that's really nice about camping is, the kids can be outside. You're not like in a hotel room. You have to be like so much more quiet and like courteous to the people around you. Camping, you're in the great outdoors. So it's really nice with younger kids, with little kids. You have a lot more space. So I really, really enjoy it. And the kids love it.
Judy sent you a gift.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. Okay, let's get this last little bit here. And then we're going to season this up and get these seared off. And then once we're seared off, we'll make the base for our little curry here to have. And then we'll start cooking up our naan in just a second. Here we go. So this is it was like a 2.5 to 3 pound block. You trim off a little fat. So I would say we have around 2 to 2.5 pounds of meat here. I'm just going to season this off with some really basic spices because everything is going to go into a curry base. And I want the cameraman to be able to enjoy his little snacks. So I'm not going to put any of the curry seasonings on it yet because we'll have that in our base for it. He always likes to eat the sauteed meats off while it's his little tax he takes. Okay, we're going to add some onion powder. So we're just going to do onion powder, garlic, salt, and black pepper on our meat here, but a generous amount to kind of coat it off so it has a little bit of seasoning. So this is onion powder, black pepper, and then let me grab my garlic salt because my onion powder, oh, hey, Bruni. Grab this while it's right over here. And then I'll toss it. And then once my oil is nice and hot, we'll start searing it off. I'll probably have to do it in 2 batches because we have a good amount of meat here. There we go. So coat everything up so it has good flavor. And then we'll saute off the pieces of meat, cook them to kind of a nice medium rare on there. And then we'll remove them. And then we'll make our base for our curry bowls. Okay. We'll let that sit there. And I'm going to wipe off our counter here where we have a little bit from our mess from our blueberry crisp. And that way I can start to cook up the naan. I'm going to do little naan dippers here. So just smaller ones, which is actually pretty easy to roll up, but I can cook multiple ones at a time. But these are perfect for just dipping, or if you have hummus or something like that. So I'm going to get my skillet out right here. And I'm going to have it starting to heat up on around a 3-4, because remember with naan, you don't cook it too high. Let me get my little pastry cutter over here and my little rolling pin. And we can start trimming off. I'll take around, we'll do 1/4 at a time. And let it. And then instead of rolling out into one big one, I'm going to cut them into kind of fourths. And then we'll make our little balls here. But I'm going to put just a smidge of flour on. Grab a cup. That way I have a nice non-stick surface to kind of roll these out on. There we go. And then just roll them out nice and thin, just like you would with a regular naan. But we'll have these nice and ready to go on our skillet once it's nice and warm. Just make sure your skillet is nice and hot before you put it on. Otherwise, your first batch of naan will take like 10 minutes to cook. Once you have it going, it goes pretty fast. Okay, before we roll out the rest of those, let's get our first round of our beef searing off. Got my oil nice and hot here. And again, I don't want to just dump a whole bunch in. I want to try to give each piece its own spot on our pan. That way it will sear off nicely with this. Your trick is you don't want to overcook your meat because that will make it tougher. You want it to remain nice and tender. So sear it off. Takes about, since they're small chunks, like 1 to 2 minutes on each side. We'll flip it and then take it out once you've got it kind of cooked. There we go. Get these guys rolled out. And then after that, once we've got that kind of cooked off in our meat drippings, we're going to cook our onions, garlic, and then I'm going to do some fresh tomatoes, spinach, some tomato paste to make the base of it. And then we're going to use some curry powder, ginger, garam masala, to kind of season it up, some cumin. So some simple flavors, but delicious. Okay. Not quite ready yet. I'll know when it's ready to flip them as you start to see these brown rings come up over the sides of them. And that's when you should see it like a good kind of brown crust on the other side. So we'll flip them over and then we'll cook them. And again, we don't want to cook them too long because we want them to be a nice medium rare. So have a nice pink in the middle. That way they don't get too tough. They will go back into our curry base at the very end, which will kind of heat them up and cook them just a teeny bit more.
You have a question. Do you have a pork fried rice recipe?
I have a Spam fried rice, which is, I know it sounds crazy, but it is so delicious.
Also pork belly.
And a pork belly. You're right. I do have a pork belly with our fried rice because I did it kind of there. But I will say the Spam fried rice I have was kind of based off of this Hawaiian dish. And it is, I've kind of tweaked it through the times, but it is now like our family's favorite fried rice way to do it. The Spam just adds a great flavor to it and it really crisps up nicely. Okay, let these have just a few on there. And then let me see if my pan, I think we've got it. It's fairly warm. We'll cook our naan on a dry skillet because we have about 1/4 cup of olive oil in each in our whole dough here. So you don't want it to be too, like you don't want that butter on there because then your skillet will start to burn and whatnot. Okay, let's get our first round of our meat off. And again, they'll sit and continue to cook. These are going to have a nice pink middle in the middle, which will be a nice medium rare. They'll be very hot, so the cameraman should not eat them yet. They should sit for a couple minutes. Practice safety. And he'll take his little tacks. So we've got our first round of our chuck roast sauteed off. I'll put my second round. This one looks like it's going to be 3 rounds because it was a good amount of chuck roast. But it's just a great way to do something other than like a Sunday roast or a stew. I find chuck roasts are very delicious. It's one of my favorite cuts of beef, outside of a steak, of course. But I do love them. Okay, put one more in there. We'll let that saute there. And then I'm going to start prepping up our onions to go into these meat droppings after we've got these seared up for this next part. Okay, I'm going to use up the rest of, I've got 1.5 onions here. We're going to use up this little piece for it.
Do you think your Spam fried rice recipe would work for tenderloin?
To like sub out and use pork tenderloin instead. You know what? You could probably do it. The only thing with pork tenderloin is it's a bit tougher of a meat. So like cutting it up into smaller pieces might make it where you have tough chunks for it on there. So that's the only like hesitancy that I would have with it for it. But you could try bacon also. I've done it with bacon before and that works well as well because it kind of gives you that slightly, saltier flavor to it. Get this.
And are you cooking dinner tonight?
I am not going to be cooking dinner tonight, but we will be doing a late night later tonight. We have kind of soccer till late tonight. So we're going to just grab something to eat. But I'm going to be prepping up stuff for our little mini kind of halfway there camping trip. So we're going to be staying in like a little cabin, but no kitchen. So we'll do outdoor cooking like we're camping. So that's why I say we have some of the amenities of a cabin, but also some more of it like there, which is what I love because campfire cooking is I love to do campfire cooking. It's so delicious. There's just nothing on there better than it. I've already kind of planned out my little meals. We'll do burgers one night, steaks one night, corn on the cob, like hobo like potatoes, which they're like you can cook them in aluminum foil, and oh, they're so good in the coals. In there, I always say it's like a different type of. It's just comfort food kind of cooking on there. If we had, well, depending on our time, maybe I'll bring yeast. My son loves it when I make Stockbrot, which is something my German foreign exchange family, we do like these big campfires, and they would make Stockbrot, which is dough that you wrap around a stick and you cook over the fireplace or the fire, not the fireplace. And it is one of our, like, we all just really, really love it. It's so delicious. So if we have enough time, you just have to give it time to rise, but it is so good. It's also, we call it stick bread, but the German word was Stockbrot. Okay, we've got this round cooked up. Is there going to be any meat left for our curry dish? See, he's already eaten so much of it, but I'm guessing it was good. Again, cook this to a nice medium rare where you have a good bit of pink inside. They will continue to cook once you remove them from the heat. So again, don't overcook them. And let's get our last round in here cooking up. And then we can make our little kind of our curry base. The nice thing about this is you can put it in here. You can continue to make this. You can eat it right away, have more of a fresh, or you could let it stew and eat it later if you want to let it sit longer, or it's even great the next day. I find curries, like kind of like chilies, the flavors kind of mellow out and really meld together the next day. They really kind of blossom a little bit better the next day. So this is one that is really great, again, as a reheated leftover, which is one of the reasons why I love kind of curry dishes, but I'm making it for my parents because they'll be able to eat it. I'm making a big batch of it for it. Okay, we've got our onions prepped to go in there. Let's get some garlic minced up. We're keeping the base of this is going to be really simple. It's just going to be tomatoes, garlic, onions, some fresh spinach at the end, and some tomato paste again. We'll throw in a little bit of yogurt, give it a creamy flavor, and then we're going to use some curry powder, garam masala, cumin, ginger, kind of bring our flavors together. So let's get this minced up. And that way we'll be ready to start cooking everything off. But this is going to be kind of like a fresh curry. So not like your stewed all day curry, but like a fresher, brighter version. Get a couple more minces on it. It doesn't have to be super finely chopped because we'll have a chance to kind of get it nice and caramelized. And then our meat, we're looking pretty close to being able to flip it here.
Yeah, but for a weekend camping trip, how long does it take you to pack?
You know what? Not very long. I will say I'm pretty efficient and I'm a pretty big procrastinator on top of that.
And you're
Um,
not packing.
and yeah, and we're not packing the tent because we have a cabin. So, I mean, this is like the bare minimum cabin in the sense of it. So we need camping chairs and cooking gear, which I keep after every camping trip. I pack it away and they're all packed together. So we have a really good system of where things are kept. And that way it makes it easier. So it's me just loading a tub in and then going and grabbing like a couple, essentials tonight. Um, I think it's not too much. Now, doing my long camping trips where we are going to be gone for like 3 weeks and I have to factor in all the locations we're going to. Because typically when we do our camping trips, we don't just stay in one campsite. We'll go to, multiple campsites and we like to do different national parks. And so, like this summer, we're going to do a really big one. I'm very excited for it. Once I get it completely planned, I'll tell everybody about it, but or it's going to be a lot of fun. But then it's a lot more planning, and that takes a lot of what do we need? What do I need for everyone's? Where can we, wash our clothes midway through? Food. Now, a lot of this one I'll bring food along, but a lot of times we don't go grocery shopping until we'll have like a couple staples, but until we get to our first round of campsites, and then I'll pick up at a local store there to kind of make it a little bit easier for it. Um, I will say it should be, we don't need to bring like a pack and play now. Like there's things like the little kid high chair is gone. There's things that make it easier where you don't need as much room. Okay, we've got these guys sauteed off. Get them. And so, but I will say, I mean, it can get pretty tricky on there. And you'll always remember there's always something you forget. There's always, and it's going to be some random thing. But every trip we go, I have like a new list of what to bring, what to get, what to do, just to improve on,
You have a question, a little bit of misunderstanding. Uh, what do you do with your parents then? They
My
are self-sufficient.
yeah, I mean, I should say they're self-sufficient. I make them lots of food, so they'll have lots of food to get through, to get us there. On our big camping trip, when we're gone, a lot of times I make them a bunch of food, and then part of it goes into the freezer so they can pull it out after a little while. But eventually, they goes to them going out to eat, or they plan the trips when we're doing. So a lot of times we'll do our camping trips and then we go up to my sister's lake house and my mom will go fly down there and be there part of it. And then my stepdad's on his own and I just think he just stops and gets whatever food he wants. Or he plans a trip. This year it's going to be like a 3 week long camping trip and it's going to be, I don't know, I'll have to plan well for them. But I typically make up like a feast for it. Well, my mom will come out. She'll come out in the middle of it because in the middle of this camping trip, we're going to be going to Disneyland. So that's kind of, we're going to be it's going to be going across the US and seeing, some of these really cool national parks because there's a whole bunch of them on the West Coast. And we're going to go and we're going to visit a lot of them. Okay, we've got these kind of cooking up. They're just a little bit longer on these first round. I always say the first one takes a hot minute to get going. Let me grab a cutting board out. But she will fly out and kind of meet us there and do that with us. Because we do actually have like a soccer tournament that we're going to be going in the middle of this trip as well. So it's kind of but it'll be fun. Growing up, that was something that my mom always took us on was we did these big, like 2 week long camping trips to national parks. And I just always loved them. And so, I wanted to share those experiences with my kids as well. And because I feel like camping's a dying art. Not as many people do it, and we do like real camping in a tent, and it's really fun. You get kind of, you see all these amazing places, the nature, and disconnected, from the hustle and bustle of everything. So it's really nice. Okay, let's get before we add in our tomatoes, I'm going to get some tomato paste in here and then some spices going for it because I want it to get a little bit of direct heat. There we go. And from there, let's see, I'm going to take a peek to see how much longer. Oh, about like a minute longer on our crisp, which is kind of perfect timing. There we go. Look at that. Now we're getting to business here. Beautiful. Let me grab a spoon. We're just going to toast up on the other side, give it a little bit more brown on there. I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of tomato paste in here. It's going to add a nice kind of rich acidity to this. We will be adding some yogurt, which will make creamy, and a little bit of beef broth, but this will add a nice kind of base to it. We'll mix that up in just a second, but I'm going to add in some ginger as well, about, let's say around a tablespoon of ginger paste. You can also use about a teaspoon of powdered ginger if you want to. I'm going to turn this down just a smidge, give it a quick toss, and we're going to go get our blueberry crisp out of the oven for us to have here. Now let's get that mixed up. Okay. Okay, when we come back, we'll take that off. But let's go get our blueberry crisp. We've had it in there for about 25 minutes. So it should be done, but double check, make sure it doesn't need a minute or two longer. Oh, perfect. Here we've got our nice, you can see the blueberry is bubbling up around the sides, but you have that nice golden brown crisp in the middle. Amazing. Now this is one you want to let it sit and cool because those blueberries will be like magma. They'll be very, very hot. So let it cool for, 10 minutes, I would say, before you actually like bite into it. Otherwise, they'll be too hot. Okay, let's get our little mini naans right here. And then we're going to rub them with a little bit of butter to keep them nice and soft. And then we'll get our next round going out. And you could also, if you wanted to, you could sprinkle them with garlic salt or fresh parsley right now as well. But delicious. Okay, let's get this one rolled out, or a couple, and then we'll get the rest of ours making here. So just make your little balls on there. And then we'll toasting up. Now that my skillet's nice and hot, these next ones will go much faster. And if you have a pizza oven, you can do this recipe in a pizza oven. They cook up really well for it. Just make sure it's, you know the difference between Fahrenheit and Celsius. My parents' pizza oven was Italian, and I didn't realize for like 2 years that it was the big numbers out front wasn't Fahrenheit, it was Celsius. It totally had a C on it, but I just never actually took the time to look at it. And I was wondering, I'm like, dang, this cooks so high. I was cooking things at like 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'd like to say I discovered my mistake, but I did not. Cameraman pointed it out. There we go. Get these guys. Okay, get our flavors in here. We're gonna add in about a half a teaspoon of ground mustard. A couple good shakes. And then I've got curry powder. We're gonna do about 2 teaspoons of curry powder. And we want to do this on a hot skillet. Let that heat really bring those flavors out. I have some garam masala. We want to use about 2 teaspoons of this as well. And then I'm going to use about a teaspoon of cumin. I'm going to give this a good mix. And then we're going to add in our tomatoes and then our little bit of beef broth, and we'll let it kind of stew, and then our yogurt. And that's going to be kind of our base for it. We'll throw in some fresh spinach right at the end, and I'll be just about ready to eat up here. But you want these spices to really bloom out right now, so we're getting this direct heat on here. So let me slice up my tomatoes so we can start adding in here. These tomatoes will add a little bit of liquid to it, but we'll be adding about a cup of beef broth to this. And you'll have that tomato paste in there that is going to keep things nice and rich. But this, I like to do the, fresh tomatoes to give it a really kind of more vegetable base and a bit of that fresh kind of acidity to it. Here. And then right at the end, we'll throw our seasoned beef chunks that we sauteed off back into it. But this cooking this heat on here, that is going to allow it to really bring those spices out, especially like curries and stuff like that. Cooking them on direct heat, it allows that to really, bloom. Okay, let's get this last one diced up. We'll give it a good mix. And just a loose dice, chop on it. You could always use a can or two of diced tomatoes if you don't have any fresh tomatoes. Give this a nice mix. Lovely. I will say it smells so nice. We'll let those stew here for just a quick second. I'm going to grab another little spoon so I can start to stir it up here. And then let's check these guys. Beautiful. These ones are ready. These ones need a few more minutes, so we'll put them right over here. I'm going to check my rice. It should be just about done. Beautiful. So we'll fluff that here, but I'm going to turn off my direct heat so that it doesn't continue to steam. We're going to add in about a cup of water and then a nice scoop of chicken bouillon. So I'm going to add in half of it right now. Give it a good mix around, and then I'll add a little bit more. But as it kind of hits that tomato paste and those spices, it's going to thicken up really nicely. There we go. Beautiful. And then let me add a nice big scoop of beef bouillon in here. This is going to give you a nice little beef flavor in it. Season it up. So I added about, I want to say, a little less than a tablespoon because I want it to add the saltiness factor so I don't have to add any other extra salt either. There we go. I'll let this simmer. Beautiful. And then let's get we can add our yogurt in, and then we're going to add in our spinach, and then we'll add our beef chunks in. For this, we're going to use about, I haven't used a spoon yet. I'm going to use about a cup or so. I'm going to add it in here a little bit more, and then I'll mix it in, and then I'm going to taste it. but this is going to add a nice creaminess, and the tartness of the yogurt is going to pair really well with the spices. There we go. Okay, I'm going to give a nice quick little taste. Delicious. Beautiful. Okay, let's bring this up to a nice simmer. We're going to chop up some spinach, throw that in there, and then we'll get our meat in there and put it in here. I do a good handful of baby spinach here. I'm just going to give it a light chop up. That way I don't have any really big pieces of spinach in there. You don't have to dice it or cut it up too much. Now, if you have the big leaf spinach, yes, you're going to want to chop that up some more. This will add a lovely bit of, pop of green. Okay. Once that comes to a simmer, let's get these guys off. Beautiful. Our next round. And then I'm going to rub a little bit of our butter on them. And then I like to do it on both sides. That way it gets nice and soft. Wonderful. Okay. We'll roll out another batch here. And you don't have to do them little. You can do a big one if you want to. The little ones I think are just really perfect for dipping, which I really like. Okay. Get these on there. Do them a little bit. Apparently I grabbed a big chunk here. And then we're going to add our spinach in, and we'll add our beef chunks in, and then we'll be ready to serve up here. And get these 3 on cooking for it. Okay, we've got a nice good simmer here. Beautiful. I'm going to add our spinach in. And I'm adding this at the very end because, again, I want this to be like a fresh beef curry dish, not one that's been stewing all day, so that these vegetables kind of remain more intact. Gives you a bit nicer of a texture and a fresh flavor to it.
I have a question. Are there any types of foods you don't like?
Not really. I am a very, very, versatile eater. I eat everything. I love pretty much everything. I love food. I grew up in a family that eats pretty much everything, where we have a very, very wide palate. We're not picky eaters. And so I'm very exploratory. I'll try anything at least once.
Just pudding.
Yeah, yes. Texture. Okay. Just pudding and yogurt and anything in that texture. That is a texture thing, which isn't a flavor thing. It could taste lovely, but that texture kind of gets me sometimes, all the time. Don't like it. Okay. Let's let that simmer here. I'm going to add in just a pinch of garlic salt. And then once we've got our spinach wilted, and we'll add our beef in here, and then it'll be ready to serve up. Delicious. Okay. And I will say it doesn't take long for the spinach to wilt. As you can see, it's already kind of starting to get down, and that's when you know that it's ready. We're going to put all of our meat in here, including any of those drippings and sauce, and you're just going to coat it up. Wonderful. And there we've got this kind of really fresh, happy beef curry here. I'll slide this over here, and just looks amazing. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to turn this down, or turn it off, and let's get ready to serve up our lunch here. Okay, get my rice. And I'll get a spoon for that. Ringing the dinner bell. Give this a nice little fluff here. Perfect. Okay. Let's do, because it's kind of a rice bowl, it's like a curry bowl. We'll do it in here for this. And let me grab my little naan dippers over here. Yeah, we have them nice and ready. Okay. For lunch today, we have our jasmine rice for our curried beef bowls. So we're going to make a nice little bed of this at the bottom of our bowl. That way we can spoon over our beef curry. And then we have our delicious beef curry that we made with this wonderful kind of a tomato-based sauce with a bit of yogurt in it. We used curry powder, garam masala, tomatoes, garlic, ginger, onions, and then we have our chuck roast that we sauteed off and seasoned up in there. And I'll grab a nice big spoon of this, pour it around. That way it seasons it up. And then we will serve it with our homemade sourdough naan, which I love to dip into the curry. And then for our little sweet treat at the end, we have our beautiful blueberry crisp made with fresh blueberries and a lovely oat and brown sugar crumb topping on there, which is just adds a perfect bit of sweetness. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our beef curry here and our blueberry crisp and our sourdough naan. You can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my Hexcad griddle pan, my all-clad pans, my Dutch ovens, knives, cutting boards, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for